you ever wonder, like, this is a wild thought, but like, if someone made a book about me someday, where would they get the stuff? Like, my mom didn't keep anything. You know?
He had so much stuff to find
like
to make a book about.
Who's keeping all of that? Like,
I have all Nikki's notes in my phone.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
I don't.
I've kept my parents keep a lot of shit, so someone could make a book about me.
I was telling
certainly.
Noah that I think if someone made a book about me, it would just be like Postmates receipts. That would be like the only thing that people would have, like a paper trail of me.
You're just gonna have CVS receipts that were once your Miss America.
And that's a big book. That's a long book.
It's a real long book.
Welcome back to the show. It's You Up with Nikki Glaser. In studio, Anya Marina, Josh Potter, and joining us now, Judd Apatow. Welcome to the show, Judd. Welcome back to the show.
Yes, I'm a returning guest.
You are. Thank you so much for being here. It's such an honor to have you in here.
Pleasure.
Judd is here with his new book. It's Garry Shandling's book, which is an extension of the Zen Diaries of Garry Shandling, which is the two-part documentary series that you did that we all freaking loved so much. I mean, you did an amazing job on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and this is the book. How did this book come about?
Well, when we were doing Gary's memorial service, I wanted to put together a little book of photos and photos of jokes and journals, and so I made this like little book for it, and then instantly I thought like, oh yeah, this would be like the great coffee table book. Well, when I was a kid, there was a book called the Marx Brothers Scrapbook, and it just had all these like pictures and stories about the Marx Brothers, so I always loved that format. So this is like an oral history, so I took all the interviews I did for the documentary, and a lot of times you could only use like 2 sentences because you're moving quickly, and I thought, oh, what if I go through all the transcripts and have like, Conan talk at much, longer length about that issue, or stories that didn't make sense for the doc but are interesting in a book, and then combine that with the journals and the jokes. Like I was going through Gary's stuff, and I'd find just jokes on pieces of paper everywhere. Like on a piece of paper, it just said, people say to me, "Where were you on 9/11?" And I say, "Which one? I've had 8 bad 9/11s." But I don't think he ever did that joke.
Yes.
And they were everywhere.
God.
And I thought, oh, it'll be fun to put them somewhere.
And this book, I gotta say, it's so beautiful. It's so well done. Just flipping through it, it's just, I can't wait to dig into it. I have to say, like, if you are looking for a gift for someone in your life for this Christmas who loves Garry Shandling, is a fan of comedy, is just someone who can't get enough, you got to get this book for them. It is such a good gift. It's heavy. It's glossy. It smells good. It's beautiful. I mean, you did an extraordinary job on it. I mean, you handled Garry Shandling with such care. I mean, he meant clearly a lot to you. How long did that documentary take to put together? You said 2 years?
It took 2 years. It took a year to just find everything.
Yeah.
Because first we said, let's find everything he ever did. Let's read every piece of paper that has something written about him that he wrote, that someone else wrote. Let's find every clip. And then we took a year to cut it together. And then HBO was amazing because I just called the head of HBO and said, I think this is 2 parts. I think it's like the Bob Dylan documentary.
Yeah.
And it's one of those rare moments where someone says, Judd, whatever you think it should be.
Oh, yes.
And that's remarkable. I mean, it doesn't happen very often when you go, I want to do Garry for 4.5 hours. I'm like, why shouldn't he get time like OJ? He's better than OJ.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
And that's why it's good, because we slow down. And so when we talk about his stand-up, we don't show one joke. We might show 3 minutes of him doing a set.
Good.
And I think that's why it's good. And then with the book, a lot of it is his journals. And, he was this spiritual seeker. And so most of his journals are reminders to himself. It'll say like on a page, let go, drop your story, give more, give what you didn't get, love more. And he was constantly saying those things to himself. And even though he was really neurotic, it was beautiful that that's what he was trying to get to.
Yeah.
Just like drop your story, which is a big thing, I think, for
it's
people.
Such a big thing. People on Instagram, like these influencers, will get like a million likes for a tweet like that, like a picture of that.
Yeah.
Imagine Garry Shandling now would be like a huge influencer.
Yeah.
On
But what does that mean? What did that mean to Garry? Because I'm trying to drop the story. I mean, isn't stand up the story? What did he mean?
I think what he meant was that you have these events in your life and you hold on to them, and they form your reactions to things. So a lot of it to Garry was based on being completely open. He had a circle on the back of his head. I forgot what the name of it is. It's like a Buddhist symbol for openness. And basically the idea is that you don't bring any of your life experience or judgments to any situation. You come in completely open. So, for Garry, whose brother died when he was a kid and from cystic fibrosis, and had this weird relationship with his mom, who probably cracked a little bit from losing a son and really engulfed Garry. It just created all this neurotic behavior. And I'm sure drop the story means, get back to who you are without this overlay of all this shit that happened and all these feelings. Like, who are you at the core without all that?
Yeah, it's so hard to do. Did he get to a place where he dropped it, you think? Was there ever a time that...
I don't think he fully dropped it, but he definitely was on his path. And I think Buddhists think, like, it might take you 20 lifetimes to drop all of it, and that's what it is. It's a journey to do that kind of work. And he definitely got to a point where, in a way that most people don't, he thought, like, I don't know if I need to work, because so much of my stuff is about wanting to be on top, wanting to be, perceived a certain way and to succeed in a certain way. And in his later years, he's like, haven't I done enough? Like, why do people want more?
Right.
And then he just became a mentor and read people's scripts and gave notes and would talk about maybe doing stuff, but wasn't obsessed in the same way. So he definitely adjusted.
And do you find yourself kind of headed in that same direction of, like, I've done enough, I want to, but like, how has it changed your life? Maybe kind of digging into his notes and spending so much time reading these things and the way that he wanted to be. Has it impacted you?
Well, I always think about, why do we make anything? And when you've made a lot of stuff, it's easy to go, I got to make stuff just to make stuff, or just for people to think I'm still in the game. And I just try to get back to only doing things that I'm very passionate about, that I think are important in some way. And it could be important just because it's going to make people piss their pants laughing. Or it could be like producing The Great Depression for Gary Goldman. This
so
brilliant
good.
stand-up set about depression. And I think, I love that I'm in a position to help get that executed and to get that idea out there. So I try not to think about status and just, I'm as happy, doing the very little I did on The Great Depression as I am making Knocked Up.
Right.
I don't, it's all the same.
Oh, that's good.
I'm just trying to do things that I feel happy I put into the world.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I'm proud of. Like, some things are better than other things, but I'm happy it's all out there. I'm not ashamed of any of the attempts.
And that's really good to hear, and it kind of checks what I was just over the weekend. I was hanging out with some comics in a green room, and we were trying to think about, like, what is all this leading to, and is any of this making us happy? And because the more successes I have, I'm like, I don't know, I'm still struggling with the same stuff. This isn't clearly the answer to happiness, is these career accomplishments. And we were thinking, what stand-up comedians are really seem well-adjusted and happy? And honestly, Judd, you were the only person that we came up with.
And you don't even know me.
And we
that's
don't
the
know
thing.
you. And that's what I said. I go, and we don't know him at all. And but do you feel that? But from hearing what you're saying, I mean, you obviously want your movies to do well and you want them to be well received. But do you suffer on the back end if they're not?
I definitely feel bad, not so much about money. Like a movie not having a big box office gross. I would feel bad if I feel like I didn't figure it out. Like, I kind of didn't pull that off. It's like if you made an album and there were 10 songs and in your heart you knew 3 of them were good.
Yeah.
You're like, God, there were 7 filler songs on that album.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that would bother me the most. Like if I thought I nailed it and no one went, that is not as painful as knowing I actually didn't do a good job.
Yes.
That's the thing that kills me. And I think that if I just get to the purest place to do any of this from is, the world's awful for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of toxic stuff out there. Can I just not be part of the toxic stuff?
Yeah.
In whatever I'm doing, if I'm here talking to you, is it a positive part of somebody's day that we're having this conversation? And if I keep it at that level, then I'm happier than if I'm going for world conquest. Like, why aren't I Will Smith?
Yes.
Which I've seen a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And yes, it makes people miserable. But if I think maybe someone will read the Garry book today, and they might read something that'll make them nicer to their kid or something.
Yes.
Like that's, it's like putting a little, message in a bottle out there.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is, a podcast, a movie, a radio show, I'm just trying to do my part to lift the thing up a little bit.
You don't seem to me as someone, though, that would put out an album that had 7 filler songs.
Yeah.
Even if it was, due the next day, you would find a way to, I need to get it done right. Would you call yourself a perfectionist?
I never think about it in those terms because I feel like creativity is very loose and mystical, and perfectionist sounds like kind of anally, trying to figure things out, and it's like Bruce Springsteen in a recording studio trying to get the drum to sound right for 6 straight weeks.
Yeah.
That's not really.
You're not that.
I'm more like, I made a movie with Pete Davidson this summer.
Yeah.
Setting the space for him and Marissa Tomei to do a scene, which we've thought about for a year, and we do it, and then nudging Pete in a slightly different direction, and then Pete starts improvising, and then something magical happens.
Yeah.
Which to me isn't about being anal. It's about creating the circumstances where something else happens.
Yes.
Like when you're on stage and you do a joke you've done 1,000 times, and then out of the blue you just do one line after it, which is way better than the whole bit. And you're like, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
That's what's exciting to me about it.
Yes.
Because I think your unconscious is being creative all the time. That's why I like improvising. Because Pete said 100 things during the shooting of his movie that I never in a million years would have thought to tell him to say. That blew my mind. They were funny or emotional, he revealed something that I didn't even know was happening. And that's, how I try to look at creativity. Anything can happen. Schumer did things, that you saw, where you're like, wow, she, in the funeral scene when she's talking about, her dad and who hated her dad, who loved her dad,
Yes.
And it was beautiful, but you can't control that.
Yeah.
You can't go, Amy, I'd like you to cry in the 3rd sentence there.
Yeah.
And I don't like that kind of, Stanley Kubrick obsession to detail. I want to be moved because I know it's happening.
Not to oversimplify, but it sounds like also a lack of ego situation. You separate yourself from an ego and you can look at things that way,
Well, I'm trying to not make it about me. I've definitely worked with people who are like, if I don't write every word, I don't like it. Mm-hmm. But I feel like it is a collaboration. Mm-hmm. And so it's not really about me proving when we're shooting that scene that I was correct about it.
Right.
I don't want to be correct about it. I just want us to pull it off.
Yeah.
And Garry was like that too, where, if the first AD at the Larry Sanders Show was like, it'd be funny. Gary's like, that's great. Let's go. Let's go with that. It wasn't about ownership of it.
I found that too, even with my stand-up. Are you as generous with people tagging your jokes? Do you want collaboration with your stand-up? Because that can.
Oh yeah.
I feel like as I started with the stand-up, it's just I have to write all my jokes. If someone else gives you a joke, it's not true stand-up. It has to just be all you. And as soon as I did a TV show and it was collaborative, I'm like, oh, this is way better. And so now with my stand-up, I bring other people in. You're the same way with stand-up?
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny going through Garry's stuff. I would find out who he wrote some of these jokes with, because there's a lot of very famous Garry jokes, and you find out, Garry didn't write that joke because he was really nice. There's our friend Ed Solomon who wrote Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Men in Black, and when he was in college, he was writing jokes for Garry, and he told me that they were in Garry's kitchen one day chatting, and Garry was saying, I have an intimacy problem. Oh, no, my friends tell me I have an intimacy problem. And then Ed said, yeah, and they don't even know me. And that became a very famous Garry joke. But it's beautiful that Garry knew to hang out with Ed.
Yes.
And that's part of the soup of it. So, as someone that, spent years writing jokes for Roseanne, I mean, what sense does that make? I'm like 22 years old writing Roseanne's joke about being a 40-year-old mother. But it was great, you know. And so I've done that for a lot of people. And, you know, I love sitting with Wayne Federman writing jokes. I always bug Wayne, like, let's write some jokes.
Yeah.
And that's like the best part of it to me, like to go, I'm going to be alone and no one gets to think with me. I don't think it's very rational.
I agree. Do you struggle going over with your stand-up, which I love so much? You're one of my favorite stand-ups. Your special on Netflix. What was the name of it?
It was called The Return.
The Return. If you haven't seen Judd's stand-up special on Netflix, I really recommend it. It was one of my favorites. I just am such a fan of your stand-up, and I'm so glad that you returned to it. But do you struggle watching yourself? What's your process with writing? I'm interested in that.
In stand-up?
Yeah.
Well, my biggest problem with stand-up is I have a very deep core belief that I am not interesting and I have nothing to say and no one actually wants to watch me. And one of the reasons why I do stand-up is almost as a form of therapy to fight against that belief. Because it's not rational. Although even as I say it now, part of my brain's like, it is rational.
Yeah, I know.
You know, because you'll be at like you know the Cellar, and you know, like I'll see like you and like Mulaney, and then you're just going like, why am I doing this? You know, like people are so good and so defined, and it was very hard for me to ever think that my personal feelings and my story was interesting.
Yeah. And
it only changed because we did a thing on Freaks and Geeks about Bill being a latchkey kid, and he's watching Garry Shandling on the Dinah Shore show do stand-up, and there's a Who song, I'm One, playing, and you basically realize this is his childhood, is just being alone, watching stand-up, and laughing alone. And I shot this sequence and directed it, and Jake Kasdan, who was a producer then, said, that's the best thing you ever did.
Wow.
And it unlocked it, like, oh, so these little things that I think are not interesting, maybe they are interesting.
Right.
But I struggle with it every day. Like literally a month ago, I'm like, maybe you're done doing stand-up. Maybe that's
so it's an effort to you in a way to get up.
It is, because I just go, man, is there anything I'm saying that someone else isn't saying? And I have to fight through that. And I'm in my best space when I go. It's almost like I'm doing a lecture, you know, like I'm just, here's what's happening with Judd lately. I can't think of it like I'm George Carlin or something. I just have to go, here's what's happening in my world, and I'll tell you about it, and people seem somewhat interested.
Even though you have that going in, do you ever like have a victory after a set where you're like, okay, well, they wanted to hear about that. That's like proof that I am on the right path.
Well, I had really good sets this weekend at the Comedy Cellar. I sat down with Federman about 3 weeks ago, and I said, I got to write some jokes. And we really worked hard, like trying to like wake some stuff up, because I was editing the movie and my brain couldn't switch to writing stand-up. Yeah. And I did wind up getting a lot of, you know, jokes that I, you know, didn't have before. And then they worked this weekend, and then suddenly I'm so happy. I was like trying out a bit about like leaving your therapist and being so happy to ghost them, you know, because they didn't get you healthy enough. And so like you go like, now you feel abandoned. You don't even know why I left. Just wonder the rest of your life, you know. And it just made me laugh. Yes. And then suddenly like, I like stand-up again.
Yes. Yeah, it takes one bit.
Yeah.
Do you watch yourself?
I don't love it, but I will listen a little bit, mainly from memory. Like if someone told me this, I don't know if it was Collin Quinn might have said it to me, that if you just hear your own voice, it almost wakes up the part of your brain that has all the memories. And then I can remember my jokes better.
Yeah.
Because my memory is for shit. Like I'm just in a constant memory panic.
What? So how do you keep track of everything you have going on? I mean, that's the thing about you that I just admire so much. You never seem like, you never seem frazzled, but you've got a million projects going on. How do you, I mean, I think it's just your nature to be able to handle that, but do you ever just go, like, do you ever have a panic attack? In that sense of like stress?
I used to have real panic attacks. Yeah, I mean, I had terrible panic attacks when I first started doing like punch-ups and stuff. I would feel so responsible. You know, I got hired to punch up Happy Gilmore, and then I got hired to punch up the Chris Farley movie Black Sheep.
Yeah.
And I had such a panic attack. And I had this panic attack while meeting with Lorne Michaels. So I'm at this table. By the way, I don't know what a panic attack is. I literally think I've lost my mind.
Oh my God.
And my heart starts racing. And
How old are you at the time?
I'm 26.
Oh, wow.
And I'm just talking to Lorne. Lorne and the producers, they're telling me what the problems are they're trying to fix in the movie. All I'm thinking for an hour is, if I have to leave, I'll just tell them I had some bad Pollo Loco. But we're talking and we're pitching ideas, but I'm just going like, Pollo Loco, Pollo Loco.
Yeah, you're writing your excuse.
And then I'm like, but then if I go to the bathroom and come back, what will the second excuse be when I have to leave the second time? And I'm just flipping out. And I had really bad panic attacks for a while. And that really sent me into deeper therapy because I didn't understand what a panic attack was.
Yeah.
And the thing about a panic attack is if you try to make it go away, it gets worse.
Yes.
So in a weird way, you have to embrace it and feel it on purpose, like feel the nerves and it kind of melts it if you go into it.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
You know, people say like when you try to make it go away, it's like a mirror like that you smash on the ground and it becomes 1,000 pieces.
Oh, wow.
And so I definitely have studied on like how can I not be in panic while doing the work. But I think what it is I'm in a low level, like I'm at number 2 panic all day.
Okay.
So where someone might go to 8, I'm just in a simmer.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
He doesn't read that way at all.
That's right, because you can
You're
cover
so
it too.
Relaxed.
You know,
Yeah.
You
I
seem
may be thinking
chill.
about Pollo Loco right now.
Yeah. Do you sleep well?
I fall asleep pretty well. You know, I
You
just
do.
put on like, I'll just like look up like a podcast that has like Noam Chomsky on it. And I just fall asleep. You know,
Do you meditate?
yeah,
I figure after dealing with Garry Shandling.
not as much as I should. I tried
So you do
to.
here and there.
But I'll go on like a TED Talk. Like there's a TED Talk about this theory about tapping, where like if you tap a certain way for literally 45 seconds, your brain, because you have like a lizard brain, will put you to sleep. Like
you mean
it'll
the
knock you out.
acupressure tapping?
Yeah, it's like you could just tap on your like legs for like 30 seconds, and then if after 30 seconds of like just tapping at a medium pace, you just slow down and are done in like 6 seconds. There's something about your brain that will just fall unconscious.
Wow.
And so I will like look into solutions for the things that flip me out.
Yeah.
And that one actually weirdly works. If you're like have trouble getting to sleep, it's a good one.
Look up the TED Talk tapping if you have trouble getting to sleep. That's a great life hack because I'm the same way. I get to sleep fair. I have the same kind of solutions that get me to sleep quickly. But I don't know. I look at your schedule, and when I look at my schedule, I get stressed by the lack of places I have to sleep coming up. And you're a father too, and a husband, and movies, and producing, and books. And do you ever get stressed out by? Do you have room to sleep?
Here's the funny thing. For years I had to take my kid to school, so I had to leave to drop her off at like 7:30. So as a result, I would be at work at 8. So I'd get there early, and then I would try to leave by 5.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of my world is this 8 to 5.
Okay.
And then I try to shut it down because one thing my family was furious about, and was very difficult for me, was to not be running it after 5.
Right.
And when you're running it or taking calls or whatever, you're not really accomplishing anything. But you can just kind of be in it. And it took me decades to not be the person thinking about whatever in that time when I'm just like hanging out with the family.
That's
that was
good
very
to know.
hard for me.
Okay, so you can shut it off now. You can go,
Now
this is
I'm pretty
work
good.
time. This is that makes more sense. All right.
But I go hard and then I try to fully shut. That's the dream.
Yeah. That's I just thank you so much for being here, Judd Apatow. It's Garry Shandling's book. It's Garry Shandling's book is the name of the book. I'm not kidding you. It's a beautiful book. It's such a good gift to give to anyone in your life who cares about comedy, who enjoyed the Garry Shandling documentary, The Zen Diaries of Garry Shandling. HBO, right?
You can stream it or you could buy it. There's also a Blu-ray that has tons of cool extras on it.
God, it lives up to everything everyone says it is. It will the documentary itself, and I can't wait to explore this book. Thank you so much for being here. Judd
Good to be
Apatow,
back.
everyone. Yeah, thanks so much. Thank you so much for watching that clip that you just watched. Did you enjoy it? I hope you did. If you did, thumbs up it. Why don't you subscribe? Why don't you just keep watching more videos? Let them play. Share with your friends. Go share on your Instagram story. Go just have a great day.